And I don't mind telling you, I was wearing these $600 custom-made lizard shoes and this $13,000 Rolex when it happened. That's why I'm Ric Flair.
The Sockjig Sneaker Podcast is the only sneaker podcast without any banter.
That's because you don't talk to anyone.
Welcome to episode 17 of the Sockjig Sneaker Podcast. I am your host, Sockjig, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well at Sockjig. First off, I want to say thank you to everyone who bought a pair of socks that I dropped. You know, I think it sold out in like maybe 30, 40 seconds. That's really incredible. It means a lot to me that you care to put it on your reminders to, you follow the link, you buy, you check out, you follow my stuff. It means a lot to me. And so thank you so much. And really, I do apologize if you tried to get one and you missed out. The inventory was small this time. I did a couple of group buys before, so sometimes that kills like half the stock. And, it's a balance of trying to figure out how many to buy all the time for me. There's times where I've bought some and, I sell 80% of it, and then the 20% takes a longer time to sell. And other times it sells out in 30, 40 seconds. So really, I just can't have 500 pairs of socks, for example, and be sitting here with 400 of them when people maybe only really wanted 100, right? So from the DMs and stuff that I got, people were excited about them, and I probably could have sold all of them as invoices and not even had a public drop, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure there's always a set amount for a public drop. And if you DM'd me and asked me for them, I probably told you the same kind of thing. So check out episode 7 of this podcast where I go into detail about the making of Sockjig socks. I think it's interesting if you had an idea and you want to have a product and put it out there, kind of the lessons I learned, stuff I learned along the way. So check out that episode if you haven't already. So this podcast is called Getting Over, or How to Get Over. So I need to explain what that means here if you don't know. It's actually a wrestling term, a pro wrestling term, and it basically means to get popular with the fans. So if you generate a reaction from the fans, that means you're over. In the beginning of this is Ric Flair, and think of The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin. Those are wrestlers that were over with the crowd. People liked them. Even if they're good or bad or heel or babyface, it doesn't matter. If someone is a bad guy or a heel, they're over when they generate boos or you suck chants. And conversely, if you're a good guy, you're over when everyone cheers for you. The death is the middle where kind of no one knows about you and no one cares about you. So I'm taking that topic and kind of applying it to the world of sneakers. So, consider it when I say the word over, think of it, just replace the word popular. So how to get your, so what I talk about here is how to get your store popular, how to get your resale business popular, how to get your social media or become an influencer type of stuff. So a lot of this I've kind of talked about in Twitter before. So really, I've taken a couple subjects here and kind of tried to mesh them together. It might work, it might not, but consider this the director's commentary version of some of the tweets I've sent recently. But first, on feet and pickups. On feet, I had last couple of days has been what the KD7s, the P-Rod ones came out this week, and so I was looking at the kind of what on Deadstock, what does that I have, and I just saw the KD7s on the shelf. So I always loved the KD7. That's probably the last good KD. It's actually a big, like, chunky shoe, but it's actually super comfortable because of the full-length Zoom Air. Also, most of the week, I've still been wearing one of my favorite shoes recently. I probably said on feet last few times has been the Awake Asics Gel Cano, the silver green one. That's still been mostly on my feet this week. Pickups. Since the last one, I picked up the On Flame 500 Yeezys. I picked up the black and the camo version of the Air Max Supreme. I kind of had to get the camo one since I leaked that info. I picked up the Legend Blue Jordan 11 Lows, and every time a 11 Low comes out, I usually automatically buy it, and it just kind of sits there, but they're not as comfortable as I remember, but these ones seem to fit a little bit different, so maybe I will try them on. It's a good summer shoe. I was able to get the New Balance Slam Jam 991. The suede on those are actually super soft. I also picked up these Reebok Cottweiler Zig 3D Storm Hydro. They look like a speedboat, and they're super comfortable as well. Misses, a bunch of the stuff that's come out I haven't got, like the Shadow 2.0, and even the P rods. For these kind of SBs mostly this year, I kind of enter the Premier raffle, and that's really my best chance because sneakers is no chance for Canadians these days, so I don't even think about it. And from what I heard, the stock is probably pretty decent on these P rods, but that doesn't really mean that much these days because there are some rumors that Paul Rodriguez wanted skate shops to have a lot more stock. So once you add it together, it's like, oh, maybe that means they'll just backdoor more, and if that means there's less on sneakers. And it's one of those shoes where I actually think that if both shoes were like the black cement toe box one, it would look really good. But they're mismatched, so and that's kind of the theme for what does, anyways. And this is one of those shoes where it would probably means a lot to you if you're a diehard SB fan and you've been following Paul Rodriguez for a long time, who's one of the most well-respected skaters out there. And to me, who's not followed that path at all really that much, so it doesn't really mean that much to me. But even if they look kind of unwearable, it's a good collector's item, I guess. All right, so the first topic I wanted to talk about has been two recent stories that hit sneaker Twitter about resellers. One was this GQ article about wanting to get rich selling sneakers, start flipping bricks. Another one was Boy Nova in this Vice News video. So in the first one, it was just really some guy with like 650 followers talking to GQ about all the bricks and Air Force Ones that he flips. Usually people talk to Business Insider about their resale business, or, and this is the first time I've seen GQ do it. So for this GQ article, it was actually on Apple News too. So if you scroll, you swipe right on your iPhone, your mom and stuff probably saw this and was probably asking you about it. So the blowback from this article was, people are like, why are people talking to the press about this stuff? Why are they burning the loop about selling bricks, particular AF ones? Sneaker Twitter doesn't want mainstream media to post these kind of articles because the fear is it will gain the attention of more people to try it, especially in a panoramic where people are looking for side hustles, and it will ultimately kill prices. So that's the reason why people get mad at people talking about this kind of stuff. You look at it and it's like, why did this guy do it? So either he knows the writer, or the more obvious one is he's doing it for clout and attention. So if the theme of the show is getting over, he's trying to get himself over. He's trying to get his business established, his name out there, that especially if he sells sneakers directly, has a home site. He's like, the goal is to get his business over so that people would go direct to him. The other one was Boy Nova, who's a YouTuber who openly talks about how he buys and sells sneakers using the mini bots and stuff that he has. So he was featured in a Vice News YouTube video about botting sneakers for a living. Full disclosure, Nova has been nice to me and has complimented me in the past on Twitter. He randomly wished me a Merry Christmas last year, so I've always enjoyed his videos, but I don't know him other than that, and just wanted to get that out there. And the difference between this video and the GQ one is he's really well known. There's been times where Nova has posted videos where he, say he sold Union ones too cheap or something, and it's a good Twitter joke and Twitter meme to talk about that kind of stuff. But for the most part, he is really well respected. He does hit a lot of sneakers, and that's how you gain respect among, honor among thieves kind of thing. How you gain respect among other botters. But what was interesting was he was pretty clear in that video that it's not easy. He even said you can have a $5,000 setup and not hit a single pair. So people were mad at him about going on this video and kind of talking about this stuff. But I tweeted at the time that it wasn't a big deal for me. Nova is already well known and openly talks about botting on his YouTube channel, and that anyone getting into botting because of what they saw on Nova is going to be in for a rude awakening. Nova has access to private proxy pools, which is one of the key things in how to get sneakers that most normal people will not be able to get. And he's got like tons and tons of bots where, one might cost $5,000. So it's hard to go from step A to where Nova is. You have to take a whole bunch of small steps. And I said, I think most non-sneakerheads look at these news stories and just, just shrug and be like, wow, imagine doing this all day. I think I said, they probably look at this and go, what a bunch of losers. And, touche. So in the video, he's wearing a Notify hoodie, and that's Notify is a cook group that he's a partial owner in. So in terms of, the theme of this show, he put himself over, he put his cook group over, he put his YouTube over. Really what Nova said in the video is not that different from all the other botting YouTubes and sneaker investment YouTubers out there. They all cater directly to this teen audience more closely than I think Vice News does. It brings attention. More people want to bot. Stock was decided 18 months ago. So if they get in, there's going to be less of the pie. That's the fear. But these same people who are upset about Nova and the GQ article are oftentimes also flexing themselves. They got stacks of boxes in their garage. And honestly, that's what I want to say here. It's like, I think that kind of stuff does more damage than mainstream media posts do, because you're more likely to convince your circle of friends, and they might have been the ones who helped you stack those boxes in the garage, than some, GQ or Vice article. These days, every side hustle is gamified. People spend their day reselling from thrift stores or used books, and then they take that and they sell videos or courses on this. And it's like, hey, buy my methods, it'll guarantee you money. And there's a whole system, a formula for exactly that. They gamified garage sales. Here's my garage sale method, and I take what I buy there and I put it on eBay or whatever. And then eventually, it seems for a lot of them, they end up making a lot more money off those courses and vids than they do from the knickknacks they bought at the thrift store. The other thing is, it's like, you got to look at every generation. Every generation is different. Is in every generation, there's the people who are built for staying quiet and the other ones who are not. Generally, the younger you are, the more you like to flex. I saw a TikTok video, some 15-year-old telling everyone on TikTok, buy this bot, I think it was Stellar or something, and then use that bot to buy video cards. And then that way you make thousands of dollars while being 15. That kid's not going to think about, is this good for, reselling cards? Is this good? He's just saying, hey, he's just trying to get himself over on TikTok. The line is, the game is to be sold, not to be told. And that's, probably from drug dealing, but it applies here. You got to go with your personality. If your personality is to be, young and loud, then people are going to be young and loud. And that's not going away for any generation. There's always going to be someone who's young and loud. Do what you can control. If this generation is not built for staying quiet, you got to be built different. Next thing I want to talk about has been the Hall of Fame Shopify drops over the last year or so. And what's the common thing among all of them? Who's done the Hall of Fame drops so far? It's been Union for the, the fours, Concepts for the Turduncan, Notre for their dunk, Bottega did one. I think Impata had one, a smaller one, I think, in terms of stock for their 920. And of course, recently, Aman Manier. Just think of everything that Aman Manier did. They had all these 3 types of different raffles. They had staff at multiple storefront locations, maybe at different warehouses as well. They coordinated with Shopify. And, they're big enough where they pay for the Shopify Plus, which might cost, thousands of dollars per month. And, think of all that work, the coordination, and how much it costs. And how much it would cost if you didn't do all that and you just dropped them all online and bought them all. You would, make way more money, but then everyone would hate you. So why put in all this effort? The one thing in common with all these drops, their name is directly on the shoe. These stores are not going to put all this effort in for blue, yellow Yeezys that dropped. Because Notre's name is not on that shoe. Bodega name is not on that shoe. Union's name is not on that shoe. That's why you put in this extra effort and cost, because your name is on the shoe. Getting a collab shoe is still a rare thing, especially with Nike. So they treat it as a special thing. They set aside money and want to put their best foot forward. They got to present themselves in the best way, because most of the time they're telling their product and personal story and out there. You can't tell your personal product story and then not care and then have 0% of it go to just regular buyers instead of botters. Bot protection is not always necessary for these kind of drops. Two of the recent ones have been the undefeated 97s, and of course the recently undefeated had this Kobe raffle with 3 waves. Yeah, the 97s I've talked about a few times. For the Kobe raffle, it might have just been better for optics instead of having one drop where, a lot of people hit, but then most people miss. Whereas in these multiple waves, it kind of felt like you still had this chance. What would it look like for these stores if they didn't care? The prime example of this, of course, is Marcus Jordan with Trophy Room 1s. I've talked about this a lot as well, too. It's obvious he doesn't care that his name is dragged through mud because of his last name. Just look at any comments on any of his trophy room social media posts or his Twitter. It's just full of people saying backdoor or making jokes about it. To this day, on every single post. What's funny is he was tweeting, and he was actually tweeting Drake lyrics, but it didn't look like it because it was like some unreleased Drake song. And he said, the dirt that they threw in my name turned to soil and I grew up out of it. Which is kind of funny because he had tweets shitting on Drake when Drake was wearing Adidas for 3 months, but those tweets got deleted. But he also flexed on Twitter that, hey, look, I've got this design huddle with Jordan Brand team. And he was basically saying, whatever you say doesn't matter to me at all. I'm still doing the same thing that I'm doing. So if you're Notra or Bottega or Concepts, could you handle blowback like that? No, you can't. It'd probably be a company ending event. Because the goal of these types of drops with these big Nike collabs and stuff is to get your store over with the people. So your name is one that they go to when they want any other shoe. All these stores, they make money on their non-hyped goods than they do the 30 pairs of Air Jordan 1s they release on a Saturday. Livestock here sells out a GR before bows and arrows in Berkeley, for example, maybe, because Livestock is more well known. Related to all this, Payment Loop, who's Kyle on Twitter, he had a tweet recently that I've been thinking about. And he said, stores waste a lot of money on anti-bot. They can hire someone to kind of randomize every release and have good duplicate order filtering. And it would kill bots kind of way better than most of the anti-bot solutions out there. I don't disagree with him. I really like Kyle. He promoted me a long time ago, back when I had, maybe 1,000 followers or something. So I have nothing personal or anything against him. What he's saying is actually right. If you're a big enough store, you could do all that. And it seems like Kith does this to some degree when they do want to care. And you saw this recently with Atmos had, for their P-Rods, they did a bingo raffle, which was really hard to enter. But if you were home that day and you had access to all your sneakers, your P-Rod sneakers, and you could fill out that bingo card, you had a really good chance of entering that raffle and winning. It sucks because one of my followers was saying I have most of these, but I'm at work, so it's not always a perfect system. But hiring someone for a single purpose of just being anti-bot would not work. There just wouldn't be enough value there. If you could hire someone that sells out all your inventory that sits, that would actually be a huge value to every single store out there. And that is hard to do. A couple store owners I know follow and listen to this podcast, and I'm sure they're kind of nodding their head right now. If you could hire someone and they moved all your Adidas ZX or these Brain Dead tees or those Cherry or Beat Nike overbreaks, so some of the stuff that's recently released is kind of nice, but GR and it's kind of sitting. To move that type of product, you really got to make the product look good online and in store. You have to have a good presentation, so people who have been thinking about it are persuaded to buy it. The number one way to do that is good photography. Not only good like product photos, you might have to take photos of a shoot of people wearing them, and even that, they have to be interesting. We've all heard of Kith Filter. That's because Kith takes really good photos. Packer Shoes takes really good photos as well. Shout out Jordan and Josh there. Sneaker Politics has traditionally taken a lot of good photos. Their photo of the white Ultra Boost 1.0 was everywhere on all the blogs and on Instagram and such. That photo alone probably convinced a ton of people to buy that shoe. So good photography goes a long way. So you need a good photography. You need good social media person to schedule all that. You might even need to do Google ads. If you're a small store and you're not doing that, you're not standing out. If you're just using official photos, then really you're a prime candidate to get cut by Nike from their, you know, either they think you're too small or you haven't differentiated yourself. And those are the mom and pop shops that Nike has been cutting out. They do not stand out. You can't exactly blow your budget paying someone to spend all day setting up secondary sites to drop 40 pairs of Air Jordan 1s. It's a big waste of money because those Jordan 1s sell out either way. Whereas right now, if you're big enough, you can buy that Shopify Plus anti-bot solution, put it up, it sort of works, and that automates that all for you. You know, it doesn't work that great when there's only 50 pairs on DSM or whatever, and Balco takes all those. But if you have 1,000 Yeezys, it works pretty good. So to recap, stores care about their collabs that they get and go all out and spend money and try to stop bots because they're trying to get over. They're trying to get you to come to the store and think of them when you want that Air Force One white on white and not get mom and popped. Okay, I've talked about resellers getting over. I've talked about shoes getting over. Now I'm going to talk about getting over on social media or influencers. Okay, so this all kind of started with, I saw this article by Soul Savvy, and it said 1 year in how COVID-19 has affected sneaker influencing. And the article asked people like the Cousteau and Fomer Simpson and a bunch of others, what it's been like for them. Yeah, I quote tweeted it and I was kind of like, will someone please think of how this deadly virus is affecting the sneaker influencers? Will somebody please think of the children? My first draft was actually much more harsh. I was probably going to quote like the daily COVID death totals because that's when all the death totals in India was in the news every single day. You know, whatever. The article I thought was kind of junk, but someone got paid to write it and someone felt it was important to publish it. But it really got me thinking because my follow-up tweet was, every sneaker influencer looks like they're secretly miserable. You know, I'm not really talking about someone who's new or starting out. That's not really about them. I was just thinking about some of the more already established people out there, the ones who have already gotten over. Some of them, you can just look in their eyes and see it. They're at the point where they can still get sponsored deals, but man, it looks like they're not having any fun and they don't even care about sneakers as much. But they can still get something from it. You know, if they don't care about the cloud anymore, it's still money or access. Whatever it is, it doesn't look like it makes them happy. So if you're not happy, no matter what you do, it's going to come through. So I was listening to Sean Go's podcast. He has a podcast called Channel 8. And there's a guest recently on there, and he was a sneaker YouTuber and Instagram photographer. And he said that he often makes videos based on Google or YouTube search trends. So, the search trends might say a lot of people are looking for how to style dunks or how to style Air Force Ones. And so he goes by what people are looking for and makes content for it. That will work. That will get you subscribers. That will get you over. And the videos could all be technically good, but is it fulfilling? Is that something that you want to do? If the goal is to get subscribers, get sponsored content, quit your day job and make this full time, all while doing videos on search trends, you can probably do that. There's a formula for that. But, my question is it fulfilling? Is it good? The content might be technically good, but are you saying anything? Or is the goal just to be bland and kind of give people what they want, but not care about what you're actually saying? The template on how to get over on sneaker social media is pretty clear. There's a formula. It just takes a lot of work. You have to be invested in it. You could make a Instagram called, 90s East Bay catalogs, but you have to have the catalogs and then you have to post every single day. And you have to then talk about the things that are in those catalogs, and it would get over. People like that kind of content. But is that something you want to do every day? Is that something you actually care about? One of the things that always annoys me is you can wish happy birthday to random people like Tinker Hatfield, and you can schedule all those tweets right now. Happy birthday, Drake. Happy birthday, Pusha T. And just anniversaries from random shit, like, Drake's Views album dropped on this day 5 years ago. Then put a photo of the album cover and Drake in his new shitty Skechers shoes. That will get you likes and retweets because people like Drake. But are you saying anything other than happy birthday? Not really. Every year you see a Bleacher Report or someone will post, what time is the Super Bowl article? And the reason they do that is because everyone Googles what time is the Super Bowl. You could make a YouTube video and say, what is my UK Nike size or something like that, and people would probably find it and it'll probably get a lot of hits. The other one I saw recently was that Saint Twitter account was reporting DMX's death even before it was confirmed. And what it seemed like is a friend of DMX's had posted something on Instagram that he's gone, and this Saint guy was following him and took that snippet and assumed that was confirmation that DMX had died. When it could have been like something like he's been confirmed brain dead or something like that. Something super private that only the close friends and family should know. So this Saint guy saw this, posted it right away, even though it hadn't been confirmed, because he wanted the engagement. He wanted the retweets and likes. He wanted to be first because he's a piece of shit with nothing to say. That's why. And all this stuff boosts engagement. And my question is why? Why do you want it? If your goal is to gamify your side hustle and do this full time, this kind of shitty formula stuff will do that. But gaming the system is just empty calories. None of those things say anything. What is your point of view? What do you really have to say? Last time I mentioned Tinker Hatfield on Twitter, it was a quote from a Sarah Germano article for, I forget who, but it was the article something like, Can Nike Keep Its Cool? And the article talked about how he was dealing with a fellow executive, here I pulled it up here, named Trevor Edwards, who is black. Here's a quote from the article. In the autumn of 2017, Tinker didn't think Edwards should be put in charge of, quote, an American brand, unquote, according to Edwards and another person who worked at Nike at the time. I'm not canceling Tinker Hatfield or anything. I'm just going by what was reported there. It's easy to praise Tinker for everything he's done, but if he's been problematic, I think that's worthy of posting. Even if that tweet of mine got 12 likes versus a tweet wishing him happy birthday, which would probably get 100 likes. That's because I tweet with a point of view. I genuinely have something to say, and it's usually well thought out. And sometimes it's jokes, and sometimes it's serious. And sometimes my serious tweets get no likes, and sometimes my jokes get no likes. And those are the ones I usually end up liking the most. And then sometimes, it's popular. It comes across, it connects. But it doesn't matter to me. The process of actually saying this stuff is what is fun for me. But if your goal is to get sponsored by Nike one day, are you going to say anything shit-talking Tinker Hatfield? No, you're not. So in general, if you have scheduled social media posts wishing Tinker Hatfield a happy birthday, it just means I shouldn't give a shit about what you have to say because you got nothing much to say. Okay, so once you're over, you get access. And that leads me to this Rack's Life tweet that I was posted a couple weeks back. Rack is someone who has a point of view. He is over, but also has access either from working at Lapstone and Hammer or from his friends. I don't have anything against Rack. In one of the replies even to this tweet that I'm going to say, he even said to me, he said as much, that he thought the tweet was playful and that if I had a problem with him, I'd reach out to it privately. And that's 100% true. Anything I've said, even in this podcast, I don't really have anything against anyone. And if I did have a problem with them, I would talk to them directly. Except that Saint account. Fuck that guy. So he had a tweet that popped up on my timeline and it said, "It's amazing to me that reselling is a $1 billion sub-industry just because people fear missing out on things that they don't realize they don't really need, or that they likely wouldn't even want if not for social media." And then in all caps, he said, "Billions are made on essentially dumb behavior." So I quote tweeted that and I basically said, everyone who gets seeded pairs or has easy access to anything eventually has this opinion. Like I said, nothing against Rack. I've seen this sentiment from other people as well, like Russ Bankston and others. But the common thing about almost most people that have this kind of opinion is because they have access to anything. they can get any sneaker they want. Or they had access at one time, and now, after so many shoes, they don't care as much. That thrill of the hunt is totally gone. And when you're in that kind of a phase of your life, you see the resale game differently. And then you end up shitting on it, or you looking down on it. If you can get any sneaker, you realize that most of them don't matter that much. And you can just say, hey, it's just shoes. You don't have to hunt and chase for any Jordan 1. You can send a text message and you can probably get that Jordan 1. Meanwhile, for, the large majority of everyone else out there, it's, a whole ass war out there. Even for Jordan 1s, or even for Jordan mids. If you're a 17-year-old teen and you want, say, some Arctic Pink Jordan mid that you saw on TikTok, should you just go buy it on GOAT right now for $150? Or should you stop everything you're doing and hunt for the shoe and spend hours and days at every Foot Locker, elbow to elbow with the IKEA backpack people, so you can get it for $90 retail? Which one is dumb and which one is smart? So it's easy to shit on people, on resellers, or people who pay resell when you can get anything. I know people who shit on resellers, but also got invoices to the Off-White the 10. Even if you have valid points and opinions about the state of the game and resell, your point isn't going to be as effective if you got an invoice for Off-White OG Prestos. Because the rest of us had to battle tooth and nail to try to get that shoe. And most of us did not. It's fine to have access. Congrats. I understand that. You get to the point where you have friends, you can get access. But the part that you can control is how you talk to people once you do have that access. In my State of the Sneaker Game podcast, I basically said, it's a battlefield. And if it's getting too much, it's okay not to play. I'm not going to say the entire sneaker game is abhorrent. For the last part, let me talk about myself a bit and my access. I had a tweet a while back where it said, "This is my level of washed. The only Air Jordan 1 I've been able to cop this year has been the trophy room ones with blue laces. Nothing else." And that was intended as a joke because I had just failed on getting the Shadow 2.0, but I looked over and I saw the trophy room box. But for the trophy room ones, I talked about this on the podcast before. I didn't pay retail. No one did. But I paid above the backdoor price, but below the market price. And that's because, a friend had access to it. He asked if I wanted. I said yes. That friend could have sold it at market price and made more money, but he's a good friend and helped me out. So that is what I mean by the kind of level of access that I have. I have friends who bought. I could easily ask anyone in, my in Showers Gang, the group chat that I'm in, for slots, and they do it for free. And I've done that a handful of times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But most of the time, I almost never do, because one, you're kind of taking money out of someone else's pocket, and two, I usually don't need any sneaker really that bad. Or most of the time, I think I could probably just get it myself. Like the Volt Air Jordan 1, I did try to get that one myself, but I didn't get it. I missed. And so that's my level of washed. And that's because I want to be on this battlefield and I want to try myself because the hunt is kind of fun for me. And I do have friends that work in the industry or say at stores. And, sometimes direct and sometimes indirect. So I really could reach out to them and ask for a favor if I really wanted a shoe. But, it's almost like the poker one time. Do you want to use your one time on a Volt Air Jordan 1? No. And do you want to bug these people that you know and talk to every single weekend? To me, no. And that's my personality type. I know other people who have no qualms about that and would send that text message every single time. And most of the time, it's like if you help someone out, if someone I did someone a favor and they owe me a favor, sure, then I might ask them. But most of the time, I just forget about it. Whatever. This is the sneaker game to me. That's the best part about the sneaker game to me is your friends that you make. Most of the time, the sneakers that I get is because I'm a VIP at a couple stores. And that's by my government name, not as Sockjig. They don't know me as Sockjig. That's purely based on how much I've spent with them. That's like you get a text message, hey, do you want the Slam Jam New Balance 991s? Sure. That's why those are on my cop list and the Shadow 2.0 are not. So, that's my level. The tweet was intended to be a joke, not as to be, me looking down at you people. If anything, if I've ever sent a tweet like that, it's totally by accident because that's not how I feel. Most of the time, my tweets are pretty objective or reasonable. And, I like to think anytime I'm trying to make a sneaker point, it's usually pretty bulletproof. But if people disagree with me, that's totally fine. There's been times that's happened as well, too. Because, I don't gatekeep. Like I said, I'm in my 40s. I've never been up here saying you had to be there. You don't know. The game is so fucked now. You should have been into sneakers when I was into sneakers. Because really, you didn't have to be there. The sneaker game is still, if anything, like I said, it's better now than it was back then. It's easier to get everything now. And I'm generally a positive person. I'm really not out here trying to cancel everyone. I'm basically am Mr. Brightside. That's why that segment works. Because I'm trying to think of jokes to make people feel better after an L. I did an entire podcast about the resell game and the state of the game without any judgments or talking down to anyone. Even what happened with the Trophy Room release, that podcast I did, that was like almost 100% correct. No one corrected me on that. And it wasn't a bunch of whining. It was fair and objective. And I got to this point just by being true to who I am and making the content that I wanted to see. Even Rax Life in his reply, he said, he said, I'm familiar with Sockjig's voice on here. And even Joe LaPuma once said to me that you talk spicy online. Those guys don't follow me. They don't know me. That's totally all right. They don't need to follow me or listen to this podcast or whatever. Well, it's not for everyone. If I'm talking about how complex and how hard it is buying sneakers online, these are people who might not even go online to try for sneakers. So what do they care what I have to say? You really don't need anybody else's validation. I don't need their validation. If anything, I'm really too old for that shit. My socks sold out. People like my tweets. People listen to this podcast. That's all the validation I need. When I started my Twitter account, the idea was to first have a blog out there. And this was the Twitter account for the blog. And the goal was no one's really talking about this stuff. So let me make a blog out there and make content I think people want to see. At first I basically just ditched the idea of a blog because at the time it was really sneaker YouTube was popping. And that's not really my thing. So I basically, at the time, ditched the idea for the blog and just started posting on Twitter. And almost that entire time, I have the same kind of level of access as I do now. But I wasn't out there flexing. I just didn't think that was interesting. Like I said, being a sneaker leaker, I didn't think was interesting, something I wanted to do. So I just kept posting my sneaker thoughts. So if I got myself over, it's with sneaker opinions and jokes straight up. The goal is always to connect with people, and that's how you get yourself over. I just wanted to make content that I wanted to see, and that's still the goal. The goal was not to, gamify this into a side hustle. And sure, there's bits and stuff that I've done, like lists and stuff that work, that gain attention. But even those lists were mostly centered around jokes. So if you want to get yourself over, you want to write jokes every single day. Like I said, any of these side hustles you want to do, it ends up being a lot of work. For me, that is fun. It's fun to craft a joke about a reseller or whatever. Because I can be sitting there in the group chat talking to my friends and then I think of one and I just tweet it. Most of the time, that's what happens. There's this sneaker horoscope meme going around where there was a bunch of GR models and you pick your whatever your sign is and that's the brick GR model that you're assigned. Stuff like that I don't do because I don't think it's funny. If I were to do that, I would almost always go for the joke option first. And I was tagged in something and that's what I did. I just put a bunch of Air Max 90 Mars landings on there. You can get yourself over, get yourself popular by just making a bunch of these types of memes, but you're not really saying anything. So if Joe LaPuma thinks I talk spicy online, it's because I actually have something to say. And that's because I put myself in a position where I can. Obviously that is because you're listening to this show, because you follow me on Twitter and you support me. That means a lot to me. If I'm making content for myself that I think is funny or good, that I want to see, then it's good to see that there's other people out there that also want to see that. So if you make content, it's got to be worth it for you. Does it make you happy or does it make you money? It's easy to have a side hustle that makes you happy. The money part is way trickier. So that's why when I'm shitting on sneaker influencers and stuff, it doesn't really bother me that they do sponsored content. If I think the sponsored content is cheesy, I will probably say it's cheesy, but there's a tasteful way to do all that stuff. And, it got me thinking with this, even with this podcast and stuff, the making money part, it's because when something is a commitment, it's hard to focus on that commitment unless it's worthwhile to you. Happiness only does go so far. And so, I was thinking about maybe I could do a Patreon for $5 a month or something like that, and then have special shows just for that. In any path like that where I was thinking, it's like that ends up being a lot more work, a lot more commitment, and not something I really would think would be fun or make me happy. So that's why I make these socks. That's why I only drop them once in a while. I figured people are more likely to buy some socks once in a while than do a $5 a month Patreon type of thing. So if you listen to this podcast, or you bought some socks from me, or you follow me on Twitter, or you've liked or retweeted or shared, or you told a friend to listen to this show, to tie this all back together, this is how it all came on in my head as I was writing out this outline. I really appreciate it, and I thank you. Finally, I wanted to, as I do sometimes, leave with a song lyric that's been always stuck in my head. It's by a band called Spoon, and the song is the first track off their album Gimme Fiction, called The Beast and Dragon Adored. The song is basically about the writing process of that album. The singer was going through some writer's block, and he was thinking about the feeling that you have to have, the drive that you have to have, that you basically have to feel it for it to be believable. And one of the lines that I always remember from that song is, when you don't feel it, it shows, and they tear out your soul. And when you believe, they call it rock and roll. Thank you for listening to the only rock and roll sneaker podcast. We'll see you next time. Happy birthday, Tinker Hatfield.
I gotta feel it hard, and it got some